Hi, I'm Logan Smith, and welcome to Art This Week. In this week's episode, we visit the Kimbell Art Museum and speak with Deputy Director George Shackleford about their exhibition, Faces of Impressionism, Portraits from the Museum d'Orsay. Now for Art This Week.
Hi, I'm here with George Shackleford, the Deputy Director of the Kimbell Art Museum. Thank you for joining us today, George.
Pleasure.
We're here in the Faces of Impressionism, Portraits from the Musée d'Orsay. So this is a very exciting show to have here at the Kimbell.
It's phenomenal. I am so happy this morning to see these things with you all and to welcome the first group really to tour the exhibition. We've got 74 paintings and sculptures from the Musée d'Orsay, which is the world's greatest collection of Impressionist art. The great sort of central museum of Impressionism in its founding city of Paris. And to have these things here, some of them, most of them have never been to Texas before. Many of them have only been shown in the United States once or twice, and then in New York or Philadelphia, and not in Fort Worth. And so to have these icons of the style here is just a great privilege and an honor for us.
So how did that relationship kind of first begin, and how did that then produce this beautiful exhibition we have here?
The Kimbell has a long history of working with the Musée d'Orsay as a lender to their projects and as a borrower from them for our projects. I have a personal history with them, having worked with them on two previous occasions on exhibitions about Gogh and Gogh. And so it was a natural when we were trying to plan a great exhibition, our first international exhibition in the Renzo Piano Pavilion, to go to an old friend and to propose to them this idea about a show that would make a cut through their collections, make a kind of slice of their holdings around the theme of portraiture. It seemed to me that it was a subject that touched on all of the great artists and for which they have all of the goods. So it was a perfect opportunity for us to partner together.
So speaking kind of about the history of the Musée d'Orsay, these artists in French history really kind of define a lot of the work that's represented there. How is that seen differently from the Louvre, and how are these kind of seen differently now today as well? Well,
it's largely a matter of mid-20th century rearrangement of collections, because the paintings that are here, many of them first came into a place that was called the Musée de Luxembourg. Then they went to the Louvre. Then they went to the Jeu de Paume Museum. And since 1986, I guess, 87, they have been in the collection of the Musée d'Orsay, a newly created institution in a great historic building, a former train station on the banks of the Seine, which was recreated as a museum really only a generation ago. And so these works have found their way there from many different avenues and at many different times. Some of them go all the way back to the turn of the 20th century. Others have only been recently acquired, even in the 1990s or in the 2000s. So it's a remarkable string of histories of them all. We're happy to have them all reunited in this place.
Gustav Corbeille, so I know he was kind of considered among one of the artists that were kind of pre-impressionists, and can you speak towards him as an artist and kind of his fellow artisans and their relationship with the Academy? And
That's right. So Gustav Corbeille comes to renown in the late 1840s, and right around 1850 he is the sort of young demon, the young Turk who's out there to reform painting and to bring new realism into French art. When he's doing that, an artist like Gogh is about 15 years old. And so you have a kind of generational difference between Corbeille and the artists that we call the Impressionists. That would be Degas, Renoir, Monet. Manet and Courbet were actually sort of rivals. Courbet, the later artist, the older artist, but Manet getting there really young. And so the two of them are inspirational for Impressionist painting. Courbet for having said, I'm not going to paint something that's not real. I'm not going to paint a history scene. I'm not going to paint something. You know, he once said, if you show me an angel, I'll paint it. So he's intensely interested in doing what is modern and new. And so the Impressionists too were committed to that idea of painting things that were in their own experience. And so Corbeille offers that example to them.
So we're here with one of Degas' very famous works in a cafe, also kind of known as Absinthe. Can you tell us a little bit about his work and why it's important that it's included in this show?
Well, it's such a prize for us to have it here because by anyone's estimation, this is in the top 10 paintings that Degas ever made. It's kind of if a way, the most famous of all of his scenes of cafes and modern life in France, in Paris particularly. You could almost say it's modern lowlife because Degas is here in a cafe where he went virtually every day, but depicting people who were on the sort of downward spiral, if you will. In fact, the woman who is sitting at the cafe table across the room from Degas, because he's sitting behind the table that's up next to us on the bottom of the frame, the woman sitting behind the table has a big glass of absinthe, which was a highly intoxicating beverage. And beside her sits a man who's kind of slumped around and not very prepossessing, smoking a pipe. Now, the irony is that this scene of modern life was posed by two real individuals whose portraits in the picture are key to the meaning of the painting and the success of the painting. Because Degas is playing a game and having people play dress up for him, if you will, and relying on the talents of his friend Marcellin Dubutin, the artist, and Ellen Andre, who was an artist model and who became an actress and a singer. He's relying on their talents to make believe, to successfully bring the picture convincingly forward as an element of true modern history. The same thing occurs in Manet's Beer Maid next door. Manet went to a beer hall in Paris and was amazed by one of the waitresses who could carry about 15 glasses of beer in her hands and never spill one and be able to put them both down. So he hired her to come to his studio and sit for him. And the first paintings that he painted of her were all concerned with the motion. With that gesture of being able to pose the beer, which is what she's doing right down here at the bottom of the canvas. But here, in probably what we think is the last of the paintings of the Beer Maid, she's become a person again. She's not just the waitress the talented waitress who can balance all the beer. She's become a human being. And Manet turns her face to us and we are riveted by her gaze. She's got her eyes on us and we on her. And so it becomes a true portrait at that point, though we don't know her name, though we're not given her name here.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about Van Gogh here as his self-portrait and how kind of his style was his own take on the Impressionists and how you know, he took that and was inspired to create his own?
Absolutely. Van Gogh moved to Paris in 1886. He'd before been living up in the Netherlands and painting very dark paintings, lots of them very gray, brown, earth-colored pictures. And he gets to Paris in time for the last Impressionist exhibition, and he's blown away by the color. He had no idea that this was what modern art, modern advanced art looked like. So very quickly, he tries to mimic the Impressionists, and he paints paintings that look like Monet or paintings that look like Renoir. And one of his best models was his own face. He didn't know anybody in Paris yet. He didn't know people who would get asked to pose for him. And so again and again, he painted dozens of self-portraits in this first few months living in Paris. And this one dates from the end of 1887. A few months before he's leaving Paris to go down to the south of France, where he'll spend most of the rest of his life. And it's already mature. He's already on the verge of inventing the kind of classic Van Gogh brushwork that we think of in something like Starry Night, or one of those paintings by him that is so expressionistic almost, so forceful and strong. And here we've got all of that in these parallel brush strokes in his coat, and in the sort of radiating brushstrokes with which he defines the eyes, the bridge of the nose, the cheekbones, and the hair, which really focus our attention on the center part of the painting and on his eyes, which are a very brilliant, deep green color. He's really gaining your attention by this painting, where everything seems to be moving and vibrating and buzzing at the same time. It's a kind of statement of his newfound and really great confidence in his power to paint and in color.
We want to thank George for speaking with us. You can find more information on the exhibition at kimbellart.org. You can find more information on the Museum d'Orsay at musee-orsay.fr. That's it for Art This Week. Thanks for watching.
I still got your Polaroid.